Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy Baseball and Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports because it's time to talk some baseball. I'm sorry about Lenny's situation this morning. I thought it was me with the problem. But hey, Lenny, you're still the legend. And it's a great day. Did you hear the bell ringing last night in Pittsburgh? Well, the bell I'm talking about is their first baseman, Josh Bell. What an offensive explosion it was last night in Pittsburgh as the Pirates took on the Reds. Wow, 18-5 the final score. Pittsburgh beating the Cubs, not the Reds. We'll talk about the Reds in a minute, okay? They played the Brewers. Pittsburgh beating the Cubs 18-5 last night. 23 hits for the Pirates, 13 hits for the Cubs. So total there, we've got 36 hits between the two teams last night. What an offensive explosion, and what a night it was for Josh Bell. I'm telling you, 3 home runs in one game, and it looked like no one was going to ever get him out. But 7 RBIs. I mean, what a night. I'm playing in the league last night. Check this out. I got to tell you about my competition, okay? I'm playing in a fantasy league. It's a head-to-head weekly deal, okay? So I'm playing a guy, and he only had, let me look at it, and I'll tell you about it. This just shows you how fantasy baseball rolls. And, of course, now I can't get anything to come up. He only had, 5 guys playing yesterday, okay? I'm going to give you his numbers in a minute. But those 5 guys were Josh Bell, who went 4 for 6, 4 runs, 3 homers, 13 total bases, 7 RBIs. He also had Jesse Winker, who was 2 for 3. He also had Randall Grichuk, who was 4 for 5. I looked at the stats this morning in this head-to-head, and I thought, well, my numbers are pretty good, right? Here you go. My team yesterday, I had 15 hits. My average was 405, but his average was 550. My slug was 703. Pretty awesome, huh? Until you look at his 1.150. My OPS, grand, 1.142. Until you compare it to his 1.721. Of course, it's just one day and it's weekly, but it's what it is. And Josh Bell, I'm telling you, he just totally goes off yesterday. And that's sort of our lead in. I want to go through the standings this morning and then look at some more games from last night as we talk about what went on in Major League Baseball. But I had to start with Josh Bell because kudos. I mean, he hits the ball into the Allegheny River. He hits 3 home runs in one game. And, you know, we've talked about a lot. Is he legit? Do you keep Josh Bell? Do you trade Josh Bell? And I've been one of the proponents of keeping him throughout because, number one, he's having a breakout year. And sometimes these guys do that. And I think I want to make that sort of the theme of today's show. Unholy Toledo said he was very conflicted. A lifelong Cubs fan and a Bell owner. You know, that's how I feel when the Yankees play the Red Sox. I have Rafael Devers on almost all of my fantasy teams. Of course, you know, guys, I'm a big Yankees fan. But when Devers bats, I'm always like, oh my gosh, you know, here's a big moment for the Red Sox. And typically, you know, it has been. So, yeah, we do have those split loyalties, don't we, Unholy? It's just the way it goes when you're playing fantasy. But as we look at the standings this morning, the Yankees on top of the American League East. They didn't play yesterday. They're getting back from England. It's the crosstown rival Mets. So we've got that series coming back up. This time they're playing in Flushing later today. The Yankees are 54-28. They lead the Tampa Bay Rays by 6.5 games. The Rays are in Baltimore playing the Orioles. Boston is 11 games out. They go to Toronto, look for some offense there, and we'll talk about why in just a moment because yesterday Toronto just opened up a can on Kansas City, winning 11-4. I had some players in that game, Lourdes Gurriel being one. In the Central, Minnesota 53-30, an 8-game lead over Cleveland. Minnesota today is playing in Oakland, while Cleveland hits the road to take on Kansas City in Kansas City. the Chicago White Sox playing Detroit. The White Sox only 13 games out. Everyone else, Detroit and Kansas City, they are not relevant for the playoffs or the division. Houston leading Texas, excuse me, by 6.5 games this morning. Today, Houston, this ought to be fun. This really ought to be some fireworks. Houston goes to Colorado for 2 games starting tonight. Wow. And we'll talk about those games later, but they do hold on to a 6.5 game lead over Texas and a 7-game lead over Oakland. And as we look at the wild card this morning, because I think it's July 2nd, right? You got to look at where the wild card players and who they are, because the trade deadline now is 4 weeks from tomorrow. 4 weeks from tomorrow, there can be no more trades after that date. So I'm looking for teams to start making moves. Lenny says, sound fixed, back tomorrow. Go, Arnie, go. And Lenny, thank you for the birthday greetings. Yes, today is your podcast host's birthday, and I do appreciate the well wishes. Lenny is a great friend. Lenny, we need to have a conversation. We haven't talked in about a week. I'm having withdrawals. I'm starting to have the shakes. But Lenny and I will talk baseball. We'll talk life. Lenny is not only a legend in fantasy baseball, but he's a great friend as far as legends go as well. And so thank you for that. And I missed your show this morning. I said earlier, Lenny, I was afraid I was the only one not hearing you. And I kept looking in the chat room, but then, of course, you were having problems. But I'm looking forward to hearing you tomorrow morning, my friend. So thank you for being with me this morning. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. Cha-Cha, Unholy Toledo, all you guys. We'll go through the list in just a moment, but it's good to see you guys with me this morning in the chat room. So in the wild card this morning, Tampa holds that first wild card position with a 2.5 game lead over Texas, who owns the second wild card position. And here we go. It's a cluster after that. Cleveland a half a game out. Oakland a half a game out. Boston 2 games out. The Angels 4.5 games out. And finally, the White Sox 5.5 games out. Why do I mention the White Sox and the Angels? Well, I've got a couple of things coming down the pipe, and let's see what you think about this. First of all, we all know about Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, the rookie phenom, he's coming up. He's going to pitch in that doubleheader against Detroit. And so all eyes will be in Chicago to see how Dylan Cease performs this week when he takes the mound. Dylan Cease has been very inconsistent this year. No one questions the stuff. He's got the stuff, okay? As the song goes, he's got the look. But it's been walks. It's been giving up, been lack of control. So interesting to see how Dylan Cease will pitch at the big level now once he gets to the show this week against Detroit. Now, that's a great opportunity. It's a great pitcher's park in Detroit. The Tigers like to strike out for some reason a lot, but they are a major league team, and Dylan Cease will get his first taste of Major League Baseball. If I own Cease in a league, I own him in 2 leagues, I think. I'm not starting him this week in one of my leagues simply because I want to see how he does. I'm very hesitant. This is not the year of the pitcher to start with. So, we'll take our eye on that. But him being there is another reason why the White Sox could be a player going down the road. I mean, only 5.5 out. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but you never know with Major League Baseball. Eloy Jimenez has been hot lately. I said, I think Lenny has said too at different times, we did not rehearse this, but I've liked Jimenez more than I've liked Guerrero Jr. Of course, neither one of them are my pick for Rookie of the Year if you put it all over Major League Baseball. You can't get better than Tatis Jr. in San Diego. I mean, he does it all, doesn't he? But for White Sox purposes, Jimenez is having a breakout year in his rookie season. Now, the Angels, only 4.5 out, and here's why. They've got a kid named Joe Adell, and I'm sure you Dynasty Leaguers know all about Joe Adell. Well, he started the year injured, then he was promoted, now he's up to Double-A, hitting over 400 for a stretch there. Joe Adell can do it all. He's a 5-tool player. And I look for Joe Adell to be in California playing for Anaheim sometime this year. It may be late September, okay, but I see him up, and don't be surprised if Joe Adele skips AAA and bumps straight from AA to the majors. I could see that happening, and I could see that happening pretty soon. Now, the problem with Adele is he can be a little undisciplined. He can swing at pitches out of the zone. Once he can tone that down, if he can tone that down, he will be a major force. And look out, guys, with Trout and Adele in that on that team for years to come, because Trout signed the big contract. Adele's got years of playing. He's 20 years old. Come on. And he's a great talent. Unholy Toledo says, I had stashed him a month or so. You opened it up, but he's had a little rough spot here lately. I told you he was hitting 400. He's had a little rough spot, some regression. You can expect that from everyone, but I'd look for the Angels probably to give him a chance later this year. We'll see. Okay, but that's your look at the American League wild card. Now let's take a look at the National League standings, where the Braves lead the East and the Phillies by 5.5, the Nationals by 7. The Braves are home against the Phillies starting out the week, while the Washington Nationals are home to Miami. So we've got interleague those four, while we've got the Subway Series going on in New York between the Mets and the Yankees. And I've talked yesterday a lot about the Washington Nationals. I just think that pitching is so strong. Corbin goes today. Scherzer, what a month of June. 6 wins, ERA of 1. That pitching is just too strong. And now they're playing the Marlins in Washington. The Marlins are, no joke. I mean, they are only 3.5 games behind the Mets for 4th place. So you're talking about Cease. Okay. Going back to Unholy, he wasn't talking about Adele. And Adele's still hitting well, so I didn't think that's who he was talking about. He's talking about Dylan Cease. Yeah, that's why I'm not starting Cease this week, Unholy. Too much inconsistency for me. And not saying he won't be a stud, but if he is a stud, then the White Sox can be, have a role in this playoff chase. If he's not, I could see them sending him back down. This is not a permanent move. And I liken it to what the Pirates did. They have a rookie pitcher, and I liken it to what they did with him. He came up and did not pitch well for 2 starts. So let's keep our eye on Cease. If you do still have him, I wouldn't cut him now, but I understand, Unholy, why you did. I don't blame you for that. Looking at the Central Division in the National League, the Brewers now, with their win over the Reds last night. We're going to talk about last night's action in just a moment, since Lenny couldn't go over the box scores. Lenny, I'll fill in and try to do it. I will not give it justice, but I will do the best I can with that. But the Brewers, with the win last night over Cincinnati, they are now in first place. The Cubs losing to the Pirates. They lead the Cubs by 1 game. The Milwaukee Brewers are 46-39, while the Cubs are 45-40. The Cardinals 3.5 games out. The Pirates 5 games out, and the Reds 6.5 games out. And while we're talking about the National League Central, imagine Pittsburgh if their pitching staff had not been hit with so many injuries this year. It's incredible. You got Talyon, who just now is starting to throw some. No real idea on when Jamison Talyon will be back, the ace of that staff. Mitch Keller, who I talked about just a moment ago, in making some comparisons, if you will, to Dylan Cease. Keller just bombed his first 2 starts on 2 different call-ups. He came back for a 3rd call-up and pitched fairly well. He's back down in the minors, but I could see him getting called up. In fact, he could have been called up this morning for all I know, as I was getting ready for the show. So, Pirates, do they trade some of their pitchers? Do they trade a Williams at the trade deadline and bring Keller up and let's see what the kid can do? They're only 5 games out, and that's a division that's very winnable. We know it. And within a week, when you're only 5 games out, great shifts can happen. So, I'm just... That division, though, I don't have a favorite team in that division. That division has intrigued me all year and continues to. And so I just want to keep our eyes